Hello, everyone. I'm going to be talking about the power of and how leveraging the power of and helps us go beyond the obvious. And the and in this and really refers to the power of leveraging data, insights, and analytics. And together, if we start bringing these disciplines together, it can help us unravel or uncover some of the deeper truths or game changing insights which can help us go beyond the obvious. Let me start with sharing my screen first. So the one of the questions that would come to us is, why do we need to go beyond the obvious? Um, and this is an example that I've taken from some of my past experiences working in a beverage company, working with a lot of our customers who work in the food casual dining as well as fast food space. And this is a hypothetical example. This isn't a true example, but let's say if we were trying to optimize the communication or messaging to a consumer or a potential shopper who is walking into a store, a fast food outlet, and trying to figure out the impact of how our signage, merchandising, or any of the other communication collaterals is working. If we were to ask that question to a consumer, saying, hey, did you see any of these? Do you recognize any of these signages or merchandises or communications? And again, there could be different ways in asking the same question, but we could ask a person about the question about what did my stimulus do? And did this really lead you to make any kind of a difference in your ultimate decision? Because that attribution is what will drive us to understand whether it's working for us or not, and if anything should be changed, whether it's in terms of the strategy of how we are saying it or in terms of execution of how it is shown. And if you put yourselves in the shoes of that consumer or shopper, you will give a response saying, yeah, I saw this signage, or I saw this price point, or I saw this visual imagery and that looked very attractive, or I didn't know this product exists and therefore I found out and I wanted to try it. The appeal was so good that I went for it, right? So there is a lot of internalization or rationalization that is being done by the consumer, but a lot of this could be happening behind the surface, beneath the surface, literally, in the unconscious or the subconscious brain. So just seeing that visual imagery, if you ask a question, every person will try to rationalize the answer, but they may not necessarily fully know or understand how to articulate everything that went behind the scenes or beneath the scenes, right? In terms of why did they make the selection that they made, and or does this really work for them or not? Likewise, there might be things, again, I'm not trying to cast any aspersion here on people. They always have the most earnest intent when you ask them questions, but sometimes they may not want to appear in a certain way, right? So if you ask a question about alcohol or about fast food, which may be perceived to be unhealthy, versus a salad which might be perceived to be more healthy, and you ask them that question, they may tell you a response that they would want to project their own truth towards, right? So they may want to seem to be more purposeful in their choice making. They may want to show that they make the right choices which are healthier for them, and they don't want to set up a wrong example or anything of the kind. At the end of the day, people may actually not know the question that you ask them, or they may not tell you for different reasons. And again, if you think about this 2 by 2, to say, do people know what's going on or they don't know, or do people tell you what's going on or they don't tell you? And you look at that 2 by 2, there are a lot of things that people are not able to tell you because they don't know, because they're happening in the subconscious. And sometimes they're probably telling you partial truth, not the full truth. And as one great philosopher, founding fathers of freedom said, half truth is often a great lie. So they're not literally lying, but they're not able to articulate the full truth for whatever reason. So it's absolutely critical to start thinking about the unknown and the untold as well. And if you think about the classical approaches, survey-based approaches, they really focus on this one quadrant around, what people know and what they want to tell, right? But if we now start looking at what we could tap into, because they're already telling you without your even asking, which is in terms of what they're posting, what they're tweeting, what they're blogging about their daily lives. And if you use these kind of approaches, some listening based, social media, sentiment analysis and all, now you could start adding texture and context to what they're telling you, and what then, because they know, and then what they're telling you, but they don't know, but they're expressing it. They're already kind of, they're already sharing in larger forums and so on and so forth. And or it might also be around what they're not telling you, right? But they know which is around how they're behaving, how they're interacting. And so transactional data, historical information, CRM, and all these different approaches, first party data, could start capturing how people are actually behaving, but they're not telling us because they actually know it, or for whatever reason, you're not able to kind of fully articulate. And then of course there is that the holy grail, like the most difficult part, which is what they don't know and what they don't tell. And there are a host of what I'll call as system one, or it's called as heuristics based approaches, which are looking at getting instantaneous responses, whether we are using some kind of neuro marketing methods, or some of these biometric tracking tools, or some of the other cleverer innovations which are getting people to respond before they actually are putting too much processing and thinking there. So at the end of the day, there is a lot of value in understanding each of these pieces, but it's really the full picture comes through when you're thinking about the end. This is not to say that we should stop doing surveys, or we should do only social listening, or we should only look at transactional data, or hey, the behavior based approaches, or the system one heuristic based approaches can tell us everything. No, it's about the power of and. There is still a place for survey based researches and protocols, and because that's where you can truly articulate people to articulate something that's not even known, right? If it could be a new idea, it could be a new communication, it could be a new experience, it's something that you're even trying out for the first time. And if you cannot get people to, like, just listen to what they're saying, or kind of look at their transactions when the product doesn't even exist in this case. So there is a role and a space for survey based approaches. Similarly, you could use behavior based approaches. It could tell you what is going on, but it may not tell you the deeper drivers. Why are they doing what they're doing? And so some of the survey based approaches, which may use usage and attitude studies, driver analysis, as well as qualitative research, to really understand and kind of demystify the why behind the what is going on. So at the end of the day, what we try to think about is, like, literally I flipped this around, right, kind of on its head, literally, is to say the told and the known space is really the tip of the iceberg. You need to know the tip of the iceberg if you're trying to figure out how big that is. You also need to know what's beneath the surface, right? So what is the unknown and what is the untold? And this is the approach or philosophy that we've been using in Johnson & Johnson Vision, especially as we navigated our journey through these really different, very, very different world that we're living in, which started with the pandemic kind of going global. And the first question that came up was, as you started having the shutdowns and the closures, and people were not going to the stores, and they were not getting tested, and they were not getting fitted with new contact lenses, then the question really was like, how is this going to how is this going to move? What is the kind of path it's going to follow? And what is our historical understanding, as well as what is the latest understanding, the pulse or the signal of what is going on in the marketplace. And what we did was, again, this is an example of how we demonstrated this power of and is, first we established, we actually leveraged an AI based startup partner, Graphene AI, really incredible work that they're doing in this space. And we worked with them. They get access to a lot of anonymized, as well as completely PII compliant data. So it's really signals and what people are talking, that they have given you consent to kind of look at. So they collect all of this information. They leverage NLP techniques to really start making some sense of this unstructured data and start classifying that chatter into whether it is coming from a consumer or a professional, and start converting that therefore also to to really demystify exactly the extent of which this is being articulated. And we use that to understand, like retrospectively, this was the big advantage, is we could go in, because your data is time stamped, we could go in the second or third month of the pandemic and actually pick up data backdated for every month of the baseline year, which in this case ended up being 2019, and literally looked at that trend line of what that baseline was. And then we started contrasting that to the new trend line of each of the months that the data was coming in for, right? Things like what's happening with new wearers, are they coming into the category or not? Things like how are they consuming in terms of using their lenses? Those are the kind of pieces that we were picking up. And then additionally, now this is where the and comes in. We now start calibrating this data with our internal, first party data sources, which can come from some of our own Salesforce or SAP systems, or how we are selling and what's going on in the marketplace, as well as some of the external syndicated data sources that are there in terms of category understanding and what's going on. So we start calibrating that, and then we start putting this together to literally put those pieces of the jigsaw together to paint this picture of how has the market unraveled, and what could be a potential way for it to start coming back. And then this is again another example of how we use the power of and, is then we start really going and actually we fielded a few of these survey researchers to try and understand, okay, we understand the trend, we understand how off we are versus the baseline, what are the key drivers that are driving it? Some of that is already coming through in the basis of how people are posting or tweeting or talking about it, but some of those they're not. And then some of the others is also about why are they doing, why they're behaving differently. And so then we did, whole lot of online qualitative and quantitative research to start understanding what's happening in people's lifestyles, what are their concerns around their eye health in general, about their family, about their kids, and of course, what are they doing in terms of their behaviors, which are very different in a pandemic period. And we start bringing all of this together to therefore get an understanding of what's going on, how can we decompose the causals, how can we therefore, once we've decomposed the causals, literally kind of simulate what the different scenarios can be for the future, and what are the drivers that are going and underlying, and what are the areas that we need to go and address, so that we can be proactive in getting the category back to a healthy situation. And here is an example of a campaign that
go see beauty, go see joy, go see excitement, go see love, go see how the little things have become everything. Go see life through a different lens and see it all with AccuView contact lenses, the most trusted brand by eye care professionals in the UK. Go see your optician today.
So with that, let me now wrap up and maybe hand over to Kristen